Simply put, we needed to determine whether or not we had enough water into the future. These reservoirs to build or to buy water from another municipal provider, it's a very expensive proposition. So we wanted to determine what we had and what we would need so we could determine what expense, if any, would have to be had in order to increase our capacity for water. And that determination basically for this planning period was no, we don't need to increase any more capacity for raw water. Shawnee has surface water treatment. We treat West Watkins Reservoir. We also treat the Shawnee Twin Lakes 1 and 2 reservoirs. 2 years ago, we hired an engineering firm to do a yield analysis of our water resources to see whether or not we had enough resources for a 50-year planning period based on growth of industry and residential use. The capital expense to build a new reservoir is very expensive. We're probably looking at a $60 million proposition to build West Watkins today. So they examined over the last 50 years rainfall patterns and the city's overall usage to determine whether or not we would have enough water for the 50-year planning period. Their overall analysis was that we're in really good shape for the 50-year planning period. Our reservoirs are in really good shape. There's not much that's impeding our water from getting to our reservoirs, and there's been very little sedimentation into our reservoirs. So now we know what we have in terms of our raw water. Now we need to examine our plant capacity, and both in terms of water and wastewater, and we need to determine what infrastructure improvements need to be made to our water and sewer distribution networks. We engaged an engineering firm called Smith Roberts Baldischweiler, an engineering firm out of Oklahoma City that is preparing a master plan for us. And this plan that Smith Roberts Baldischweiler is putting together addresses the hydrology of the water distribution network and what problems we're having with our sewer infrastructure network, both in terms of treatment and distribution. There are significant improvements that the city has not done over the 20-year period in the immediate past, and we need to prioritize those and address them. For example, the most major issue I think that we have right now is with our wastewater. And the issue we have to determine is we have 2 sewage treatment plants. One is here on the south side of downtown and the other one's north of I-40 where our industry are located. And the debate is, do we remodel the south side or rebuild the south side plant altogether, or do we decide that we're going to find another option, which one of those that's been identified is to pump the wastewater to our north wastewater treatment plant. It's very expensive today to build a sewage treatment plant. We have land on the south side, so we don't have any expense for that, but we do have expense. The actual engineering and construction of a wastewater treatment plant is very expensive. And we've got a very new one up north that was built several years ago to address a lot of the industry needs north of town. What you'd basically be doing is just increasing its capacity. And the cost there at this point, preliminarily, is that it would be much more cost efficient to do that than it would be to renovate a plant that's 100 years old. The Mayor Maynard, has created a committee that is addressing our water usage, primarily our residential water usage. And a couple of things that they've identified is, at the start, teaching children to conserve water at a young age so that years down the road when they're Shawnee residents, they'll learn things and remember things like turn the water off when you're brushing your teeth, don't let the water run down the driveway when you're washing the car, and things like that. Dr. Joe Charon is the chairman of that committee, and they're going to work to try and educate our citizens on water conservation. And that will be a significant cost savings down the road. There are several factors to the reasons why our water rates have gone up. There were very significant capital needs that needed to be addressed and needed to have been addressed in Shawnee for some time. The primary one was our raw water line between Shawnee Twin Lakes and the water treatment plant. That ended up being about a $7.5 million cost to the ratepayer. It had to be done because if the raw water can't get to town, we can't treat it and provide it for you. So that was a pretty large capital expense. The next one that was pretty expensive was the pumps and controls at the water treatment plant. They're very large pumps that consume a lot of electricity. This project, not only were those old motors replaced and new ones put in, the new ones actually are much more energy efficient for the city. So from an ODEQ standpoint, they were considered a green project, and we actually got rebates off of the loans that we had for those after they were installed. And we still have some other things that need to be dealt with in terms of the hydrology of the water treatment system and, of course, the sewage treatment distribution and network. And so these rates are going to go a long way to helping us keep in compliance with many unfunded mandates from the state and the federal government. We want to make sure that our consumers understand that we test our water over 120 times a day. We're looking for all kinds of impurities that get into it. So it's our intent to provide them the best water that we can for the money that they pay for those rates.